everybody, and welcome back to a brand new edition of Daily to Dynasty. I am Craig Gorbanoff alongside Rich Wilhelm and Marcus Taylor for a very exciting NFL Week 1 edition of Daily to Dynasty. The wait is over. The NFL players have all tested negative. It's time for some NFL football kicking off tomorrow night at the time of recording this, Wednesday night. But by the time you're watching this, it will be Thursday. So kicking off tonight, Texans Chiefs. It's going to be a good one with a lot of great fantasy players at your disposal. A little bit of business to attend to before we get into this show. Make sure you follow along on social media, and we got all of those guys down below. I thought I updated Marcus's before the show. I forgot, but that's okay. You got all of them down here, and Marcus's is mtaylor29, and I'll take it off. And I'll fix it. I'll fix it like live on the air. That's okay. It's not a big deal. That's how we do it on Daily Dynasty. It's a great program. There it is. mtaylor29 live on the air. Check us out on social media. You can follow the show at Daily Dynasty, me at ccorps94, Rich at Coda522, Marcus mtaylor29, and John, who is not with us tonight but will be next week, John Hazlett 475. And, of course, if you want to interact with this program a little bit more, you can head on over to anchor.fm/daily2dynasty. Leave us a voicemail and ask us your fantasy questions live, and we will get back to you as soon as we can on the next episode. It's a real fun way to get involved. Make sure you like and subscribe if you are watching this on YouTube, and hit that little bell icon so you can stay up to date when we drop our latest videos. And if you're listening to this thing via podcast, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, or wherever you listen to podcasts, make sure you like, subscribe, leave a nice 5-star rating. We also want to talk about our partners. Of course, we have our partnership with the Underdog newsletter. If you're a sports fan, odds are you love Underdog stories. And every week they sift through hundreds of articles, videos, and podcast interviews. And then every Tuesday morning they send out a bite-sized rundown of only the best stories that you can find all in one place. You can subscribe to the newsletter at jokermag.com/newsletter and follow them on Twitter at jokermaghq. And last but not least, our partners over at Thrive Fantasy. It's a daily fantasy sports app for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier guys. So Thrive has prop bets for almost every single sport, and each prop has a fantasy point total associated with the over or under based on its likelihood to occur. The more points a selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive has awarded over $1.3 million in prizes since launching in 2018. Use the promo code DailyToDynasty at checkout when you sign up and deposit $20, and you can get a bonus of $20. Deposit 20, bet with 40. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store or Play Store, or by visiting their website at thrivefantasy.com. And guys, the moment is here. It is the NFL season. How are we feeling? Are we excited? Are we ecstatic, or are we expecting the impending doom of a COVID outbreak and them canceling the season? Where's our heads at?
I mean, so far so good. I mean, it's better than I could have even thought. I mean, I remember, what was it, about a month ago, we went over percentages of how, if we thought it was even going to kick off, and I was the one that was like 90%. And you guys were like at 20. So, I mean, I was the optimistic one, but I was playing kind of the optimistic role. But they did a great job. We'll have to see what happens when fans are in, the stands. I mean, Thursday night with the Chiefs and the Texans, they're having about 17,000 fans. It's a lot of people, especially with everything going on right now. The players are down on the field, not near the fans, but people get rowdy. We'll have to see how week 1 goes. But I'm happy it's kicking off.
I'm happy. I'm excited. Marcus, are you happy and excited?
Yeah, happy, excited. Also a little curious to see how they're going to pull this off, how things are going to go. Just to see how the games are going to look and sound for the teams that are playing in stadiums with no fans, and how the game will be affected in a negative or positive way.
Absolutely. And, I think all we can do is wait and see, right? So as football fans, let's just kick back, relax, and enjoy some games. And how this show is going to work, we're going to take take you through the week 1 lineups. We're probably going to skip over a handful of games that don't have a huge fantasy impact. But what we're going to do is kind of go over the games and then give you a handful of players to consider in your fantasy lineups, whether that's to start or to maybe leave on the bench this week because they don't have such a great matchup. And Rick, we've also come up with a few other starts and sits that we'll go over as well throughout the program. And then we'll wrap this up by reviewing some daily fantasy options for you. John has put together a lineup for week 1 and as well as a couple of stacks to keep in mind as you're putting together your lineups and looking at your matchups. So without further ado, let's head on into week 1. Houston Texans at Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is the premier matchup of the week. They're kicking off the season with a bang. The last time these two teams faced off, it was an offensive display, 51-31, 82 total points. Fast math award for me. Rich, why don't you start by breaking down this game for us a little bit?
I think they're starting off with a great game. Obviously, the Texans don't have DeAndre Hopkins there anymore. So I think the Chiefs are going to end up running away with it. But, it's definitely a good game to start with. You have your reigning, Super Bowl winning team with the Chiefs, who I think can definitely do it again this year. And then you get the Texans, who are really good on defense and, are going to mix it up on offense. I'm looking at David Johnson to be big in this game. I think he's going to have his bounce back year this year. I know we talk about him a lot on the show. Deshaun Watson versus Mahomes. I mean, that's always something I want to watch. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to be like a 35-24 type game. It's going to be an offensive game without a doubt. And that's not saying that the Chiefs or the Texans don't have, good defenses, because they absolutely do. I just think that, there's no preseason games. So offense is going to win week 1 no matter what. It's really hard to scheme when you don't have any, practice games. So it's going to be a lot of high scoring games, I think.
And Marcus, what's your kind of analysis of this week 1 kickoff?
Like Rich said, I think it's a great matchup. You got two of the young premier quarterbacks in the league facing off for the first game of the season. Watson just signed his extension, so did Mahomes. These are two of the quarterbacks of the future and two quarterbacks that you can consider must-see TV. They always tend to put on a performance whenever you watch them on TV. Another thing I'm looking forward to is seeing how the Texans passing game looks without Hopkins. They got Brandon Cooks. They got Will Fuller. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I think he has a lot of potential. The Chiefs, I mean, they're a machine. They're greatest show on turf type of offense. See how, Clyde steps in the running back role and see if Sammy Watkins can put up some points and see McCole Hartman and Tyreek Hill running all over the place. I mean, I think it's going to be a shootout, like Rich said. It's going to come down to who can get a defensive stop or maybe put up points on defense. But I'm excited about this matchup. The two QBs are definitely the focal point of my excitement.
Yeah, I think this is just offensive football at its absolute best. But with that, I have a surprising sit for this week, and I actually, this was prior to the injury report as of a few hours ago, but I don't think Brandon Cooks is worth starting this week. I don't love the fact that there's been no preseason. I think that Watson is going to, really rely on the weapons that have been in place for him. I don't know if they've had enough time to really develop that chemistry. Cooks is a streaky player to begin with. He's not super consistent. He's not super, he makes big plays, but he's not a very reliable fantasy option as far as I'm concerned. I like David Johnson a lot more here as the new face in a new place, as someone who's going to get a lot of action from Houston. I think Will Fuller's going to get a lot of action. And almost everyone on the Chiefs is worth starting. And you do wonder how much the running backs are going to get involved here if it is a shootout. But I think, especially on the Texans side of it, Johnson has proven to be a threat in the past game. So I think he's definitely someone worth starting. And I'm sitting Brandon Cooks this week if I drafted him. I don't think it's a good matchup. I don't think he's had enough time to really gel with Watson. And with the added, he's listed as questionable with a quad injury. Maybe he doesn't have that top end speed that we're used to seeing from Brandon Cooks. He's someone I am looking to sit. Rich, what do you think? Brandon Cooks, sit him on the bench?
Yeah, I mean, his injury concerns, even going into this week or something, I'm not going to deal with. I mean, if there's any wide receiver on the Texans I want to start, it's Fuller. I think he's going to be the guy that Watson looks to early and often. So I'm with you. Start David Johnson, sit Brandon Cooks. That sounds perfect to me.
And we all mentioned Will Fuller. I mean, he's a total beast when he's healthy. He's one of the most electrifying players on the field. So definitely someone to be excited about. Now, for anyone who isn't aware, this show is brought to you by interstateofgreen.com. It's your one-stop shop for all things New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles. So let's head on down to Philly. And technically this game's a little bit further south, but the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Washington football team with their brand. What I love about their logo on the website, just while we're on the topic, every other logo is like a character. Theirs is a red square with a yellow W. Mm-hmm. It doesn't match any other logo. I just love it.
It makes it seem like all their players are on the waiver wire.
Yeah.
Especially if you're on SleeperBot. If you look at it, it looks like they're on the waiver. Every single one who's on in Washington.
It really does. But you know what? I think Washington is actually a fairly interesting team. They've developed there's a couple of players right on their roster that have some intriguing fantasy value. So Marcus, let's start with you. What's your just kind of overall impressions of this game?
This game is a repeat of game one last year for these two teams. For Washington side, looking forward to seeing Haskins and how he can control his offense in the first year starting the season. You got Antonio Gibson. He's now taken over the primary role for the running back since AP got released. And I want to see if Haskins has a rapport with Scary Terry in the passing game to see how that picks up. That can be a good fantasy option for people. If they drafted Scary Terry, he can definitely put up numbers because he's clearly the best option they have on offense. On the other side of the ball, a good pickup would be Deshaun Jackson. Remember last year he torched the Washington team for 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards before he got that abdominal injury. Now they're coming right back, and I don't think Washington's secondary has been upgraded that much to where you should be afraid to start Deshaun. Carson Wentz is healthy. Deshaun is healthy. Miles Sanders is there. They still got Ertz. I think Philly can take this one. I think Carson Wentz can definitely put up some numbers in this passing game.
And Rich, we'll kick it right over to you. Why don't you pick up where Marcus put it down?
All right, so one of my starts this week, because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, is definitely Antonio Gibson. It's a miss. Like, you don't really know what's going to happen with that running back crew. After what happened with Darius Geis, Adrian Peterson's out the door. I'm picking him up off the waiver. I think, when we're talking about the show, you want a guy that's going to be on the waiver wire that you can pick up possibly now. I know he's available in a lot of leagues. He shouldn't be. I'm going to start him this week. I think that the Redskins have to score, and they don't have a lot of weapons.
The Redskins can't score, Rich. The Redskins.
I said it on purpose, right? The Washington football team have to score, and really, it's kind of Scary Terry versus the world. You need a second guy there. I mean, you could say Steven Sims. You can say Andy Golden. But for me, I think Antonio Gibson is going to take the starting role, and he's never going to let it go. This could be kind of a closer game than people think, just because there are a lot of injuries on the Philly side. I do agree with Marcus. Deshaun is a scary start just because everyone else is hurt. Alshon Jeffrey is hurt since birth. Jalen Reagor, he did get a full practice in on Wednesday. We'll have to see how what he does on Sunday, but I think he's going to be limited. So it's going to be Deshaun and Ertz and Goddard and Sanders, which there's a lot more, on Philly's side. But Antonio Gibson, for me, he's going to sneak into my lineups this week.
Yeah, I really like players, who are kind of the only option on a team. Like teams like Philly in previous years, the players on the Patriots have scared me because you never really know who's just going to be getting the rock. In Washington, it's Gibson, it's Scary Terry. I like that as an option. I do have Gibson on my team. I am debating playing him, but we'll kind of get into that conversation a little bit later when we get to another one of my starts of the week. But I think this should be a pretty interesting game. The Eagles are 6-point favorites. I think they can probably cover that. But I think that should be a good game, and I think your guys hit the nail on the head with your analysis. So nothing really to add there for Philadelphia versus Washington. Let's keep it in the AFC East, and really I think there's only a handful of players worth mentioning here in terms of starting, or not keeping the AFC East, head to the AFC East. Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. I think Cam Newton is a must start this week. Over the last couple of weeks, just the things you've heard coming out of the New England locker room are incredible. He's working harder than everybody. He never goes home. He's putting in the extra time with Julian Edelman. And I mean, they just look like he's developing into something real scary in New England. The Dolphins defense, it's not up to snuff. I would sit almost anyone on Miami if you drafted them, and you must start Cam Newton if you drafted him.
Agreed. I mean, I think despite everything, the Patriots are still somehow going to win the division and still somehow going to win 10 games. Because at the end of the year, end of the day, I should say that Bill Belichick is still the guy. I mean, he's the coach. Coaching is super important. The teams in the AFC East outside of the Patriots are very young. You have a bona fide MVP in Cam Newton playing for the Patriots, playing for the best coach of all time. I'm going to pick the Patriots in that game 10 out of 10 times. I think Fitzmagic is going to put up some crazy numbers because he always tends to.
He always seems to. Yeah.
He will always do that. If you start him, he'll probably throw 3 touchdowns, but they'll still lose by 2 scores. In this game, the one person that I'm sitting is someone that I talk up every single year, and he's on my team every single year. And I keep drafting him, and I don't know why, and that's Sony Michel. Sony Michel, he's going to be the starter going into, the game. Damian Harris is on IR. Lamar Miller got cut. So people would tend to start him, but I think, he's still coming off an injury. He's not 100%. And, the whole offense is getting their feet wet. So in this scenario with Cam Newton, I think week 1, I would lean more towards James White if I'm going running back. But I think that the Patriots are going to score early and often. So Patriots are going to win, but I wouldn't necessarily start anyone outside of Edelman or Cam Newton on the Patriots. And on the Dolphins, if you're desperate, you can pick up Preston Williams off the waiver wire. You can go with Ryan Fitzpatrick off the waiver wire. But I don't think you're drafting many players from that team to begin with. So.
Yeah, I don't know what the situation is to week 1 that you need to start Ryan Fitzpatrick. Where you just
something drastically went wrong.
Yeah,
already.
Yeah, I don't know what could have happened. Marcus, do you have any additional thoughts on this Dolphins-Pats game?
Nothing really new. Cam Newton, pick him up if he's out there. When he's healthy, he's good. Basically, his downfall wasn't due to deterioration of his skills; it was just an injury. So now he's healthy. We talked a few weeks ago about Edelman. His catch percentage is high with and without Tom Brady. And he has Cam now. I still expect that to continue. As far as the Dolphins, I would say the only pickup is, like Rich said, Preston Williams. He got injured last year, but in 8 games, he had 3 touchdowns. He had 11.1 fantasy points with Fitzmagic on his center. They have rapport. So if you're desperate, you can throw him into your lineup and hopefully he can give you at least 10 points or more. But yeah, that's about it. Nothing really new to add.
So let's head on over to your team, Marcus. The Minnesota Vikings will host the Green Bay Packers.
Blowout.
And let's kick it over to you for the completely unbiased analysis of this game.
It's going to be 45-0. Now, with this game, I'm interested in seeing how the Packers passing game goes. They got Devontae Adams, but Devin Funchess opted out. They didn't draft another receiver. Devin Funchess was their big free agency acquisition. Looking forward to see how that team functions in the passing game. And Aaron Jones, see if he can come anywhere close to his touchdown production last year. With Minnesota, looking for Captain Kirk to pick up and lead this offense. It's going to be run-oriented. Looking for Dalvin Cook to come back and have another great season. But I'm more interested in seeing how the pass game looks without Stephon Diggs. They got a rookie in Jefferson. They still got Thielen. And I think these two tight ends and Rudolph and Irv Smith are going to get involved in the passing game a little bit more without Stephon Diggs there. His targets got to be spread out. And looking for this defensive line, I got an upgrade thanks to Jacksonville. I just want to see how that looks. We lost our starter. He's going to be out for a little bit on the other end, but I'm still looking forward to see how this defense looks this season with our new acquisition and just overall after losing Trey Waynes, Xavier Rhodes. Just want to see how they look. Vikings 57-0.
Well, that's it. They are currently on ESPN the 2.5-point favorites. So by your calculations, it seems like a real easy bet.
Of course.
But Rich, why don't you pick it up from there? What are your thoughts on this game?
So let me start by saying I'm surprised that the Vikings are the favorites, and that's nothing against you, Marcus. It's just the Packers last year made it to the NFC Championship game.
Right.
They didn't add a lot in the passing game, which everyone was kind of confused about. But Devontae Adams coming back, and he's fully healthy now, and you got Lazard there, and two-headed monster at running back with Jones and Dillon. I mean, the defense was scary last year. I think it's good. And it's a division game, so they're always going to be close and scary. I don't ever like to bet on division games. But I think I got to give a slight edge to the Packers in this, just based on last year. That has nothing to do with the fact that I hate Kirk Cousins and the virus is an imaginary friend. But besides that, there's a lot of good players on both sides. Obviously, you could start all the starters on both teams and you would have a good, squad. Dalvin Cook, obviously you have to start if you have him. Aaron Rodgers is dropping. He dropped drastically in every draft this year,
which was insane.
It was crazy. He was going in like the 9th or 10th round in a lot of drafts. It's going to be close. I think that the Packers are going to win, so obviously I would go with that spread, but it's going to be less than a 7-point game, I would say, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tight one. It's going to be competitive, but really both teams have exciting offenses, so I think you're pretty much safe playing anyone, from these teams. I would maybe avoid the Packers running backs because there's a little bit of a by committee thing going on, but you probably shouldn't have drafted them if you were afraid of the by committee thing. So, not really a huge piece of advice, and we'll have a better idea on how that's going to fold out over the next couple of weeks. Let's head to another division game, and I don't think there's too many fantasy players worth talking about here, but just heading down the line on my list, Indianapolis Colts versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jaguars have been trading people, cutting people. No more Leonard Fournette.
Buy or sell.
Buy or sale, exactly. I don't really think there's really anyone that I would start on Jacksonville's team right now, but Rich, let's just kick it to you. Is there anyone in this matchup that you feel strongly about playing?
We mentioned it before. If there's one person on a team, you go after that one person, and that's Shark. If you're, wide receiver wise, the mustache, Gardner Minshew, it's still the man. He's pretty cool. He can put the whole team on his back and fight Chuck Norris at the same time. But I'll go DJ Shark if I'm starting anyone on Jacksonville's side, and that's it. That's the only one I would remotely touch. With the way that the running backs are going right now, right now they have an undrafted free agent set to start, and James Robinson, and then they had Zigbo starting, and then he is on the COVID list again. I wouldn't touch anyone on that running back, just DJ Shark. And on the other side, it seems like Marlon Mack kind of fell from grace for no reason after having a solid year last year. He's still listed as a starter, and he's available in a lot of leagues. I have no problem starting Marlon Mack. And then T.Y. Hilton. I feel like he's gonna have a good game and a good season with Phillip Rivers. I think he just needed a different, person throwing him the ball. He's still a top 20 wide receiver. So I think the Colts win this one, and I don't think it's close. This would be my survivor pool pick if I could pick anyone.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Phillip Rivers, because I think under 9 times out of 10, right, Phillip Rivers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I think that the Colts are a better team than the Jaguars. I think this is a pretty easy game to analyze. But Phillip Rivers traditionally is really bad to start the season, like historically bad to start the season. He has a record of 33-35 in the first 5 weeks of a season. Like, the Chargers teams always had to win 9 games in a row to try and make the playoffs. So I don't know if maybe that was a Charger thing, and now that won't be a thing with the Colts. But I would just kind of steer clear of this one altogether, because the Jags are so bad on paper, but there's this kind of like witchcraft thing going on with Phillip Rivers to start the season. I just don't like it. I would steer clear personally. Marcus, what about you?
Going off of what Rich said, DJ Shark, he could be a good option. Other than that, I probably wouldn't pick anybody from Jacksonville other than him. With the Colts, I'm going to add Jack Doyle to that list. Reason being, for 5 years, from 2014, 2019, a big part of the Chargers offense, their passing targets went to tight ends, and they were number 1 in that. Number 2 were the Eagles, and their offensive coordinator was Frank Reich. And now those 2 guys are together in Indianapolis. So I would say Jack Doyle, since Eric Ebron is gone. Trey Burton is hurt. He's the man right now. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a good amount of targets in this game, knowing the history of the Chargers teams with Phillip Rivers and the head coach's offensive coordinator days with Philly.
Absolutely. Let's head back to the NFC North, Marcus, and let's talk about the Detroit Lions hosting the Chicago Bears, where one of my starts of this week, and probably only this week, is coming out of this game. I think this week you should start Kerryon Johnson for the Lions. I thought he's been an impressive running back so far in his career. He catches the ball pretty well out of the backfield. He's pretty fast. He has some good running speed and some truck power. DeAndre Swift, the kid that was drafted this year, injured. They signed Adrian Peterson this week. He's been on the team for a couple of days. I don't think he's going to have much of an impact in this offense. He's going to have to pick it up. I think there's one running back in Detroit right now. It's Kerryon Johnson. And, the Lions offense needs to run the football. They do not have the firepower on the outside to be slinging it. They need to kind of take advantage of the fact that they have these running backs. And I think he is someone you need to start this week against the Chicago Bears. I know the Bears have a pretty good defense. I think we all tend to remember the Bears defense from about 2-3 years ago. It's not really the same defense. They're not as good, but we all kind of pretend like they are. I think it's a good matchup. I think Johnson will get a lot of fantasy points. Rich, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this game?
I mean, Kerryon Johnson beat out a rookie, and a rookie from Georgia, and rookies from Georgia tend to be very, very good. Kerryon Johnson, I mean, we talked about him a while ago. He's someone that was falling in fantasy leagues, and, obviously he was injured last year, but he's a solid starter. I mean, you have a lot of good players on the Detroit Lions, even though they're not going to win a lot of games. I mean, you have Stafford, you got Galladay, Marvin Jones, Kerryon Johnson. I mean, they have the players. Hawkinson. I know Marcus is a huge Hawkinson fan. But this is a game that's going to be a complete toss-up. I don't like either of these teams to make the playoffs this year. As far as Chicago's side goes, Tariq Cohen, to me, a lot of people are kind of chomping at the bit because he's going to be the starter this week with Montgomery down, and he's one of my sits this week. I just don't think that he can be the bell cow running back. He's kind of a gadget player, and I think people are going to fall in love with this, just because Montgomery's down, they're going to fall in love with it and start him. and I don't think he's going to get remotely the points that the people think he's going to get. I don't even know who's going to win this game. This is a game that I'm probably going to kind of watch the highlights for and, not watch any more than that because this is probably the dud of the week. Mitchell Trubisky is starting, which to me is kind of, I don't think it's the right choice. I think Nick Foles would have been the better starter. Just kind of get these, Chicago on the right path. I do have Allen Robinson in most of my leagues for Chicago. He's in a contract year, so he's going to go off. And then on the flip side, Galladay's the same way. They're kind of like the same player on the other side of the ball. Defense, like you said, not as good as what it used to be. It's kind of Khalil Mack versus the world in Chicago there now. I guess I'm going to go with the Lions just because of Matt Stafford. I think that he can beat the Bears, but it's going to be a low-scoring game, like a 14-10 type game that no one should watch.
And the Lions are 3-point favorites according to the ESPN NFL odds. Marcus, we'll kick it over to you. Do you have any additional thoughts on this game?
On Chicago's side, I was going to say Allen Robinson, but I'm iffy because Trubisky is the QB. You really can't rely on his value if Trubisky is starting because it's so iffy and up and down with him. Same thing, the defense. A couple years ago, they were the top defense. When they got Khalil Mack, they were insane. But like you said, they're not the same as they used to be. In Detroit, Hawkinson, I think he's going to have a breakout year. I think he going to put up numbers this year. He's going to end up being the top tight end in the game, one of the top tight ends in the game. And Kerryon Johnson, he should get the volume that he needs to put up points. For years, Detroit has just never seemed to have a running game, and Stafford throws the ball like 67 times a game for some reason. But hopefully they go away from that and change the way their offense goes. Kerryon should definitely get some looks. Like you said, AP had just got there. I don't know if he's really familiar with the offensive system, the playbook, so everything kind of falls on Kerryon's shoulder. I'll pick Detroit to win this just based off Stafford being better than Trubisky.
Yeah, and I think that's the coin flip. It often comes down to who has the better quarterback, and Stafford over Trubisky any day. I think the next couple of games will be relatively quick hitters here. Carolina Panthers will host the are they now the Las Vegas Raiders? Are they still in Oakland? No, they're Vegas. I don't really, I wouldn't personally start anyone from either of these teams this week. I think maybe Darren Waller on the Raiders side, maybe a Robbie Anderson, depending on when you drafted him and what your other receivers look like, but probably not. McCaffrey, obviously, you have to start. He's the best player in fantasy football land. But like other than that, I'm not really looking at this game too seriously. I think the Panthers are going to win this one. They're probably going to win it fairly easily. And it's going to be the Christian McCaffrey show. So that's my analysis. Rich, what about you?
Yeah, obviously on Raiders side, Josh Jacobs, I like that. I think it's going to be a lot closer than you think. I think the Panthers are a young team, new head coach. Obviously they have the best player in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey. But, the Raiders almost made the playoffs last year. They didn't have a great team. If you're looking to start someone in a dynasty league, I think Bryan Edwards is a very good pick at wide receiver. Him and Ruggs, it's going to be the rookie showcase for Las Vegas. But I think I got the Raiders winning this one just simply because the Panthers defense is really not so good anymore. And Christian McCaffrey can't carry the entire load, and Robbie Anderson can only run one route. So he's probably going to hurt himself.
He only needs one. He only needs one route.
It's going to be wrong, though. He's going to run it straight into the goalpost, be out for the year. It's going to be a sad day. But, no, I like DJ Moore. I like Curtis Samuel. I like the players on Carolina more, but I just feel like the Raiders are going to win somehow.
Well, they are the 3-point favorites, so you are not alone. But I have a really hard time believing the Raiders are going to win many football games this year. And I like Teddy Bridgewater, and I like what the Panthers have put together. So that's where I'm going. But Marcus, let's kick it over to you. Be the tiebreaker here. What's your analysis of this game?
Obviously, the running backs for each team are going to be the premier options in fantasy with Jacobs and McCaffrey. I would say don't sleep too much on the Panthers. They picked up Teddy Bridgewater. He's no scrub. He can definitely play in the NFL. As far as the tiebreaker, I am going to pick the Raiders because
I give you a drum roll and everything, and this is the thanks I get.
I mean, it's like Rich said, they got Christian McCaffrey, but he can't carry the entire team. The Raiders played pretty well.
Says you. Your Vikings did it forever with Adrian Peterson. He can carry the team.
Hey, we had Brett Favre some years.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's the entire offense is Christian McCaffrey. With the Vegas Raiders, they almost made the playoffs last year despite all of the Antonio Brown issues. They still had a pretty productive season. I think Derek Carr is out to prove that he belongs as a starter because I'm pretty sure if he messes up this year, he won't be coming back. So I'm going to pick the Raiders to win this game.
Can we just pause for a minute, Rich? Can you hold that cup up again?
You like my cup?
Yeah, you took a drink of water, and I missed everything Marcus said. What is this?
This is I believe it's a peacock. It is I don't know. I got the dollar store. Pretty good.
It's pretty fun.
Refreshing. That's gonna be my NFL cup. My peacock cup.
The peacock cup. All right, I like
it.
Let's head on over to the AFC East now after that fun scheduled halftime break. And the New York Jets are at the Buffalo Bills. This is another one. There's not a lot of fantasy players that you should be starting here, but I think Diggs is a no-brainer. I think he's just going to torch the Jets for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns off of 3 catches, and that's
Deshaun Jackson numbers.
Yeah, and it's going to be crazy. As far as this game is concerned, I think I think the Jets are. I think some players are feeling a little hurt by all of our analysis. I think they're out here with something to prove, and they always try very hard against the Bills, but for whatever reason, Buffalo seems to have the Jets number. I think that the Bills are hosting this one. I think Allen is a pretty nasty quarterback. I think he's going to take a step forward and look pretty good this year. And like I said, with Diggs, that premier wide receiver role, a lot of speed. I think the Jets are going to get burnt one too many times here. Rich, you're a Jets fan. Do you have an as pessimistic outlook as me?
Actually, no, which is weird. I think the way they built this team this year, there's not any. I don't know what I can say on YouTube. I guess I could say anything.
You say anything. I'll just say it's not for kids. It's fine.
Well, I'll edit. I mean, what I'm about to say. There's not any D-bags left. It seems like, the team right now, it's just kind of built. They just go out there and they want to play. Their coach is completely insane and probably shouldn't have a job. But the way that the roster is built, exactly.
My Gase impression.
Yeah. I think they have a lot of good players going forward, which I hate my team as much as anyone would love their team just because of what they've done to me over my lifetime. But, I mean, if you look at the team from top to bottom, I think Herndon is going to have a really good game this week. He was out last year. Chris Herndon, if, he's available in a lot of leagues, I would pick him up. Le'Veon Bell, rocking 4% body fat. It worked for DK Metcalf. Maybe it can work for him. I don't think it will, but we'll see. And the wide receivers, it's kind of like, who knows what's going on at wide receiver. That's their weakness right now. Perryman and Mims, and Chris Hogan, and who knows what's really going to go on. Crowder is really the only one that is going to put up numbers. And on the flip side, you can call Josh Allen whatever you want. I'm still calling him running back. I'm going to keep calling him a running back until he proves me completely wrong, like Lamar Jackson did. But he's a very nice running back. He's Taysom Hill part 2. But yeah, I mean, I like the Bills. Their defense obviously is better than it was last year. The only thing that, is kind of going in the Jets' favor right now is there's no fans. It kind of takes that out of the game. There's no 12th man. There's nothing. So it's just going to be, team against team. And they always play together, each other close. Last year was 1 point in week 1. Obviously, it's a little different team, but
hopefully a little less mono involved.
A little bit less. If there's another mono outbreak during the pandemic, I'm going to be very mad at but yeah, I mean, I think the Bills win at the end of the day, but I think it's going to be a field goal game. I'm going to say it's going to be 24-21 Bills.
I think it's going to be 6-3 Bills.
How many times does Diggs burn them then?
Yeah, exactly. No, I contradict myself. I think this game will be pretty close. And, I forgot to factor in the lack of fans in New York. I think that will certainly help the Jets' cause, but I think there's only one player worth starting on the Jets from a fantasy perspective, Le'Veon Bell. I wouldn't start anyone else. I did pick up Hogan, and I plan to stash him a little bit and just see what happens, but I'll probably end up dropping him in about 2 weeks. We'll see what happens there. Marcus, real quick, any closing thoughts on Jets Bills, or can we move on to a fantasy game that might have some better players?
I'll just say for the Jets, Le'Veon Bell is an option. I have him in a couple leagues. I'm looking forward to him to have a bounce back year, 4% body fat. Let's do this. 1,000 yards, Pro Bowl. I want to see him bounce back. Although I didn't draft him. I would like to see how Sam Darnold looks. I like Sam Darnold. I want to see him become a star. I think he can. So I'm going to see how he controls his offense, even though they have a lack of receivers. I just want to see how he takes control and what steps he takes forward this year. For the Bills, even though you say he's a running back, I think he finished number 6 in fantasy last year for QBs.
Because he ran a lot.
Yeah, well, he's still a quarterback, so. I'm looking forward to see how him and Diggs mesh, even though I'm mad Diggs left. But I think he can have a pretty good game against this Jets team. And Devin Singletary, Frank Gore is gone. This is his backfield now. I want to see how he can take control and if they look to feed him a little bit more. But, I think the Bills can take this game. Hopefully it's not a blowout, and hopefully the Jets can make it competitive.
And, the Bills are 6.5-point favorites. I think Rich is dead on the money that this is a 3-point game. So I think, I don't know, you got a couple of bucks. Maybe FanDuel threw a couple of shekels your way. They had a little promo bet for us in Jersey. Maybe you throw a couple of shekels on the Jets, see what happens. Let's move on to another game here where maybe not the most intriguing fantasy game in the world, but definitely some quality players on both sides of the ball, and that's the Cleveland Browns facing off against the Baltimore Ravens. And, of course, there's Lights, Camera, Jackson. But, Rich, let's start with you, and why don't you break this game down?
Everyone. I think everyone. You can start everyone. I mean, Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens defense, Mark Andrews. You can throw in a little bit of Hollywood Brown there, Mark Ingram. I mean, the Ravens are disgusting. How much offense they have, how much defense they have, how much everything they have. And on the flip side, I mean, the Browns, you got Nicholas Chubb III, one of my favorite running backs in the NFL. Jarvis Landry and Poop Lover. I mean Odell. So I mean, there's a lot of fun players on both sides. I think the Ravens are going to win this one by 10 points. But I mean, as far as the Ravens go, that's not a lot. It's a division game. The Browns have a lot of improvements from last year. Their offensive line is one of the best in the NFL. Conklin, and they had, what they already had. I think Nick Chubb is going to go off just, based on they're going to be down early. And I think they're going to drop the ball off. A lot of Baker Mayfield, oops, let me get rid of this type passes. I think Hunt is also going to have a good game. I think, both running backs can kind of coexist in Cleveland. I think Landry is going to outperform Odell in this one. And then on the flip side, Lamar Jackson is probably going to run for 100, throw for 250, have 4 total touchdowns. Mark Ingram's going to start the game. I think, J.K. Dobbins can get in on this. If you're looking at a Dynasty league, someone that you might have just drafted, Hollywood Brown, they didn't add a lot as far as wide receivers go, but even someone like a Duvernay, who out of Texas, who is a rookie this year, I think is going to have a good game. And then Mark Andrews is just going to tear it up. This is a game that I would probably rewatch when they re-air it. But I like the Ravens by 10. I'm going 31-21.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at too, and I think you can basically start all of these guys. I think both teams have good skill position players. They're all gonna kind of get their hands in the cookie jar. I think this is gonna be a fun one in the 1:00 block of games here on Sunday. Marcus, anything to add on Ravens Browns?
Just one. I think this can be. It could sneak in and be the best game of Week 1. It has the potential. And on Cleveland, the one player you forgot to mention was Austin Hooper, coming from the Falcons. And they still have Njoku.
Well, that's why I don't know who's going to get the majority. Probably Hooper, but
it's definitely going to be Hooper, in my opinion. But I think this can be a pretty high-scoring game. So many offensive weapons at quarterback, also with 2 running QBs who can get it done with their legs as well as their arm. But I'm gonna go Baltimore with this one until I see something different from the Browns, because last thing we saw was just a season of dysfunction. And until I see something different, I'm gonna just continue to pick against them. So I'm gonna go Baltimore this game.
Hoops, there it is, Austin Hooper on the Browns, but Marcus is still picking Baltimore. Last game here in the 1:00 block. Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks at the Atlanta Falcons. I think this is another one with a lot of potential. I think this could be a lot of fun. The Seahawks are a really exciting team offensively. The Falcons have some brand new weapons in place. Todd Gurley, one of the premier running backs in the NFL, had a weird exit from LA from the Rams organization, but I think is looking to get back to form. And Marcus, we'll start with you this time. What are your thoughts?
So on the Seattle side of the ball, Russell Wilson is just going to pick up where he left off. I mean, the man's a stud. Every year in, year out, he's just going to give you numbers fantasy-wise. It's a top 5 fantasy QB. I think he was number 3 or something last year. But either way, he's going to put up numbers. DK Metcalf, I'm looking forward to him taking a step forward this year, which I think he will. And you got Tyler Lockett, always reliable fantasy option, always going to get it done for you. Has a great rapport with Russell Wilson. And Chris Carson is still in the backfield. I mean, a couple years ago, he had 1,000 yards, and I honestly didn't even know until the week of the draft. He had a sneaky good season. Very under-the-radar player. And on the Falcons, Matt Ryan, always a good option because they throw the ball a ton. Todd Gurley looking for a bounce back year. Julio gets you 15 catches, 180 yards, 0 touchdowns. He never gets in the end zone. I think one of my picks this year for the Falcons is going to be Calvin Ridley. He seems to find the end zone when Julio can't, and I think he takes a big step forward this year and becomes a bigger part of the passing game. So my fantasy options, I would say Russell Wilson, no brainer. Matt Ryan, unless you have a better option. And the receivers, Lockett, Metcalf, Julio, and Ridley. And Gurley might be. I mean, I'm a little iffy on him. I don't know how he's going to look. But it's a lot of firepower in this matchup. It's a lot of good options.
Yeah, I think you named all the major players. I'm very excited to have drafted Metcalf this year. I think he's a beast and a half. I'm hoping he gets down to maybe like 2% body fat because I think he's been slacking a little bit. He really's got a lot of potential. Rich, over to you. Your Georgia Bulldog has returned to Georgia. Todd Gurley playing for the Atlanta Falcons now. Any additional thoughts on this game?
So you missed my start of the week here, and I'm glad you did. You forgot to mention Hayden Hurst.
Oh, there he
is.
is.
That was on purpose.
I appreciate that.
Just for you.
Hayden Hurst is going to be a top 5 tight end this year. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to take over the Austin Hooper role. The Falcons are probably going to get smoked in this game, so there's going to be a lot of garbage, points, garbage touchdowns. I think Gurley's going to have a whale of a game. I think everyone's going to have a great game. I just think that the Seattle Seahawks are just way too much for the Falcons right now. So I mean, I wouldn't start either of their defenses, but Hayden Hurst, he's going to put up 18 points in PPR. There's my stat for you. It's going to be 18.
I like it. I like it, and definitely sit both defenses. You don't want none of what these offenses are coming to bring. The next game on the list here is the Chargers at the Bengals. Are we okay with just saying don't start anyone and move ahead, or do you guys feel differently?
Mixon.
Start Eckler. Yeah.
Mixon,
Eckler, a little Mixon.
Maybe Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
He just signed a contract, so
But no
Hunter
one
Henry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Hunter Henry. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
A couple of guys.
AJ Green in a couple weeks.
I'm so unimpressed by both teams. I mean, I drafted Joe Burrow in our Dynasty league, but that was for like 2 years from now. Like I wasn't doing that for this season.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a handful of guys you can consider here. I honestly think there's better players and better matchups around the league. Maybe Eckler is someone who's kind of like a must start. I guess I think the Bengals are pretty weak all around. But let's move on to a game that I think is a lot more fun for fantasy. I think you can start almost anyone on these teams. But one of my starts of this week is coming out of here. I think Jimmy Garoppolo on the San Francisco 49ers against the Cardinals is a must start. And I know Jimmy Garoppolo was hot and cold last season, and he was real disappointing in the Super Bowl. But there were some games last year, guys, where he was balling out, and people forget about it all the time. He had 5 touchdown games. He had to sling it to win it. Some of his best performances came against Arizona. Their team has only gotten better this offseason. They're getting healthy. I just think that this is going to be a real shootout. On the other side of the things, too, I love Kyler Murray. I think they've put together a real good team. DeAndre Hopkins, now the highest paid wide receiver. I'd like their running back situation. They got Drake. I think this is going to be a real fun shootout. Again, maybe avoid the defenses here, even though San Francisco has a pretty nice defense. I would avoid starting either of these defenses and just stock up on some skill positions.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sit San Francisco. I think even if they, let up, let's say 28 points, they're probably going to get a touchdown somehow. But yeah, Drake for me is a little risky this week. I just think just based on the San Francisco 49ers defense and him kind of having, an injury concern coming into the game, he'd be the only one that I would kind of be concerned about. DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray, match made in heaven. They're going to be fun for many years together. And on the flip side, I mean, obviously the NFC champion San Francisco 49ers, one of my favorite players in the entire league with George Kittle. I think they're going to, start where they left off. Wide receivers are kind of up in the air right now for them, though. I mean, we don't know if Debo is going to start. He wasn't supposed to, and then his recovery has been kind of miraculous. There's a possibility that he does play on Sunday. Don't know how much. The wide receiver, situation right there is kind of up in the air completely. They're going to rely a lot on Kittle. They're going to rely a lot on their running backs. I think Mostert is a really good start this week. He proved that he's the guy, after last year, but they still have, Coleman. They still have McKinnon somehow. I don't know how McKinnon still has a job. He hasn't played since I feel like in middle school. But yeah, I mean, I think the 49ers take this. Their defense is just so good. I mean, Robert Saleh, he's going to be a head coach next year somewhere. And I love Kyle Shanahan. I like everything that he does. So it's going to be low. I think it's going to be low, but I think DeAndre Hopkins does find the end zone. So I'm going to say 21-17, which is low for the power players they have on both sides.
Marcus, what about you?
I'm going to start with the Cardinals. I got Kyler Murray and Hopkins, of course. I think Kyler Murray breaks out this year. He can be the breakout that Mahomes was a couple years ago, Jackson was last year. He's going to get it done with his arm and his legs. He finished top 10 fantasy quarterback last year without DeAndre Hopkins. And I just think he's going to have another great season. DeAndre Hopkins catches everything and anything, and I don't think that's going to change. And he just, got that contract. I should definitely thank Michael Thomas for his fight, that $20 million a year. Other side of the ball, like Rich said, the receivers for the Niners are up and down. No one really consistent. I wouldn't pick any of the receivers. George Kittle is the number one option for that team. And he just got a contract too. I mean, he's a monster. So definitely pick him. And like you said, Garoppolo, he had a few big games, but I think there's a better option out there. If Garoppolo was your starter, I think you could have found a better option and still had a good draft. I probably wouldn't start him yet. I would have to see him do something first in his offense with no receivers and George Kittle. But
all
yeah,
you need is George Kittle. That's all you need.
But I think it's going to be a good game. Interested in seeing how Hopkins blends with Kyler Murray in this game.
I think it's going to be a real fun one. I think if I had to throw a score out there, I think 28-21 San Francisco. I think Kittle gets 2. I think Hopkins probably gets 1. Murray probably runs 1 in. And I don't know, some third player on Arizona gets the last one. But I think this is going to be a real fun one. I'm excited for it. The 4:00 block is way more exciting than it usually is this week 1 because the other game here is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. Tom Brady on a new team, Leonard Fournette on a new team. Mike Evans is now on the injured reserve for Tampa Bay, and the Saints
heading
there, close
heading
to
there.
Whatever. He's done. He's not playing. He's gone. I'm counting him out. Either way, the New Orleans Saints are the New Orleans Saints. They're one of the most talented teams in football. I think this has some potential to be maybe one of the games of the year. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in Breeze and Brady duking it out. Rich, let's start with you. What's your just overall analysis of this one?
This is going to be the game of the week. I mean, for me, this is the game that I think everyone is talking about. This is the game that everyone wants to see. And you know how I feel about the Saints. I mean, this is going to be the biggest test for them, maybe all year. I mean, they play them twice, but this is going to see how both teams really are. For me, I mean, my start is a sneaky start based on all the starters on both sides. This is not the person you necessarily would say this is the must start. But for me, it's Jared Cook. I think Jared Cook can be a huge part of this offense for the Saints. He was last year, and he is someone that at a position that's not as strong with tight end. There's not a ton of them. He's someone that's going to put up solid numbers because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to score a ton. The Saints are going to score a ton. Obviously, Godwin's a huge start this week. And on the flip side, Kamara, he's about to get a lot of money. He's going to get a ton of money. Michael Thomas, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and then at running back for Tampa Bay, that's kind of where I get a little questionable. You got Rojo there, you got Leonard Fournette. I mean, it's probably going to be a committee, so I would steer clear of the running backs for week 1 until you kind of see what happens. But you can start anyone else. I mean, honestly, the defenses, they're both defenses you would start after week 1, but I wouldn't start either of them this week. This is going to be a great game. I just don't know. I could go either way. I'm going to go the Saints by 1.
Yeah, I drafted Leonard Fournette when he was still a Jaguar, and I'm sort of stashing him to see how things turn out in Tampa. But he's one of my sits this week. I can't really play him in good health, where he's on a brand new team, getting used to a brand new system. I don't know what it's going to look like. He's a talented player. I think, Brady's going to help him get some revenge, but I need to kind of wait and see. Marcus, let's kick it over to you. What are your thoughts on this one?
Definitely a candidate for a game of the week. 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I think this could probably be the highest rated game of the week. Tom Brady in the new uniform, and Drew Brees and the Saints. Always an exciting show. For the Saints, Drew Brees, good option for fantasy. Michael Thomas, always pencil him in every week. Jared Cook, I'm looking forward to seeing him step up, see what he can do. And Kamara is always a good option. And like Rich said, he's about to get paid. So even, more reason he's going to go out there and put on a show. On the other side, I'm looking forward actually to seeing what Gronk looks like after taking a year off. So I know last time when I see him do interviews, it looks like he lost a little bit of weight. And so I want to see if he bulked up again, if he can be the Gronk of old. See if he can, spike a couple balls when he score a touchdown. Chris Godwin, a good option. You guys mentioned the running back situation. I think it'll be running back by committee. Fournette, he might, separate himself. I always thought Fournette was a good running back. Just, he played for the Jags. So, but I think he has the talent to be a Pro Bowl running back. I think he might separate himself from the rest of the crew as the season goes on. And I'm looking forward to see how O.J. Howard fits into this offense now that Gronk is there. If Gronk isn't the Gronk of old, O.J. Howard could be a good option for this Tampa Bay offense. So definitely going to be a good game. Looking forward to a few options on both sides of the ball.
Do you have a score prediction?
I'll say 24 to 20.
Who on top?
I'm gonna go.
He just threw numbers out there.
Yeah, I don't know who to pick in this one. I'm gonna go Saints.
Doesn't matter. 24 to 20.
Yeah,
whoever wins it.
A lot of new people in Tampa Bay, but the rapport in New Orleans is still there. Breeze to Thomas is unstoppable, so I'll go New Orleans winning it.
I like that score and that prediction as well. The Saints are 3.5-point favorites heading into this one. I believe we have. No, we do not have one more 4 o'clock game. We're into Sunday Night Football. The Dallas Cowboys at the Los Angeles Rams. I think this is going to be a real fun game. I will toss out 2, I think, controversial. 1 start, 1 sit, and then you guys can kind of just yell at me the whole time. I think you should start Jared Goff this week. Listen, I think the Cowboys defense is they've lost a lot of talent. They're not as good as they used to be. And I think that the Rams offense is, they had a dud year last year. They had a Super Bowl hangover. I think Sean McVay is going to get them back on the right track this season. I don't know how. I don't know why. This is just a bit of a gut feeling. But I think Jared Goff is going to have a really good game in prime time and then probably suck the rest of the year. But I think he's going to have a really good game in prime time against a Dallas Cowboy team that has to kind of refigure itself out defensively. I also think we should sit Amari Cooper this week. He's facing Jalen Ramsey. He just got paid. I don't think he's going to have a good week. I just don't. You can yell at me. You can make fun of me. These are my opinions. Sit Amari Cooper. Start Jared Goff. You might look stupid, but if I'm right, you're going to look like the smartest fantasy player on the block. The bright side is, if I'm wrong, no one's going to work these days, so you don't have to see anyone at the water cooler when they start talking trash. So, it's a win-win.
I think it's going to be a slobber knocker. I think that the Cowboys are going to run away with this. And
A slobber knocker.
Cowboys are going to just completely rout the Rams. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit that I'm wrong. But I just there's too much. There's weapons wherever you look.
I didn't say that the Rams were going to win.
You said that he was going to look great.
I just thought Goff is going to have a good game. That doesn't mean he's going to win.
All right. I think Amari Cooper is going to kind of shred, the man who just got paid a little bit, and Jalen Ramsey. I am not a huge Jalen Ramsey fan. I know, obviously, he was great in Jacksonville. I think he took a step back last year. I think Amari Cooper is a top 10 wide receiver. You got Amari Cooper. You got Gallup. You got CeeDee Lamb. You got Jarwin. You got Ezekiel Elliott. You can throw in Tony Pollard if you want. That offensive line is still very good. I just don't see the Rams kind of staying in this game. I love Cooper Kupp. You love Cooper Kupp. I like Robert Woods. You like Robert Woods. The running back situation in LA right now is kind of a complete toss up. You got Cam Akers there at running back. You got Malcolm Brown, who I don't think should start any game. So they're going to be relying a lot on the passing game, which I can see Goff, but the Cowboys are going to try to eliminate Goff. The Patriot way, you eliminate one guy. It's probably the guy to eliminate. But I think it's going to be 31-14 Cowboys.
Ooh, I don't know about that, life. Marcus, you go.
I'm gonna go Cowboys in this game. For the Rams, you start the receivers. Kupp, you start Woods. I don't know about starting Golf as enthusiastically
Start
as
'em.
you said.
Start 'em.
But Cup and Woods, they should have pretty decent games. On the other side, the Cowboys, I mean, they have a nice offense, very high-powered offense. They got one of the best running backs in the league with Zeke. They got Amari Cooper. They got Gallup. They picked up CeeDee Lamb, who definitely going to put up numbers this year. Dak was, number 2 last year, fantasy quarterback. They're talking about having 3,000-yard wide receivers. Blake Jarwin can have a good game. No more Jason Witten. Like Rich said, I think the Cowboys are just going to run away with this. Even though they do have Jalen Ramsey, just throw it to the other side of the field. Or, just run the ball.
The other side of the field, just not Amari Cooper. I mean, you
he only covers one side. He doesn't go to the other side.
Yeah, you got
hey,
2 other options to.
I'm not saying that the Cowboys are not going to win. Exactly. Yeah, they have 2 more options to throw the ball to. I think they win this game 35-21. But all I'm saying is I think Amari Cooper is going to have a disappointing fantasy game.
I think he can have a good game. Zeke
he could
run, do some play action, give it to Cooper, just touchdown.
Or maybe it goes to one of those other options. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed in Dallas.
It's going to go to everyone. I think there could be, they have 80s across the board with each having a touchdown.
Maybe not. Maybe some dude gets 160 and 2 touchdowns, and maybe Jared Goff has to sling it a little bit to try and keep up with Dak and has a pretty good game. I mean, you guys are conflating my fantasy advice with how I think the game is going to go.
You might be right. They might be in a huge hole, and he's got to throw it up and pray.
He might have to sling it a little bit, and maybe he gets a touchdown instead of an interception, and he has a pretty good game. I mean, you don't know.
He needs like 4 of them though.
That's fine. He could do it.
All right.
They could still lose.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not going to try and convince you. I'll be laughing all the way to fantasy victory this week. I don't have any of these players, by the way. I'm telling people, start Jared Goff. I don't have Jared Goff. I wouldn't draft him with your team. But I think he's a decent start this week. I think there's some good value there if you happen to have him. Let's move to Monday Night Football. 2 more games to close out this week. I always get super mad at the 10-20 Monday Night Football Week 1 game. It's usually with some teams I don't care about.
It's usually the Raiders and Chargers or something.
It's usually the Raiders and Chargers. This year, it's the Titans and the Broncos. Let's start with that one. Let's work backwards on Monday. And I think, Derrick Henry is a monster. Von Miller out for the season, right? I think the Titans offense might have a little bit more opportunity with that subtraction from the Broncos defense, and some of the players on Tennessee might do a little bit better. They also won the Jadeveon Clowney sweepstakes, right? So I don't know if he's raring to go week 1 against the Broncos, but if he gets involved a little bit, maybe get after the young quarterback, I think the Titans have a shot to really kind of dominate this one at a super late game that no one's going to be watching in person or on television against the Broncos. What do you guys think?
I mean, I think the Titans kind of run away with it just based on, Von Miller going down. I think the Titans are going to win anyway. But I do like Drew Lock. I mean, I don't think he's someone I'm going to start this week. But as far as, a young quarterback, don't do it. They have a nice core there. I mean, they have Judy, they have Sutton, they have KJ Hamler, they got Noah Fant. I mean, they kind of have a core that's going to grow over time. Titans, obviously, with Derrick Henry and AJ Brown. I don't love Ryan Tannehill. I think last year could have been a fluke, but we'll kind of have to see what happens. A sneaky start for tight end is Janu Smith. There's really no one else there besides him at this point. But yeah, I think the Titans kind of run away with it. Their defense is going to put up a lot of good points in fantasy. They'll win like 28 to 17.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate prediction. Marcus, how about you? Same thoughts?
Yeah, for the most part, I think Titans win this game. Derrick Henry, they're going to get a lot of Derrick Henry. Tannehill, I mean, I don't know. He did it once. Can he do it twice? Remains to be seen. Other side of the ball, Jerry Jeudy. They picked up Melvin Gordon, Drew Lock. I mean,
there's some guys. There's some names.
They got some people. They got some people.
Marcus drafted Judy in our fantasy or dynasty league.
I sure did.
At number 6.
So, I mean, he's the best available.
Listen, I think Denver has potential to be good, just not this season.
They're young, Fant, Judy. I mean,
they're in a
young
loaded division.
They got talented players, and they want to grow with their QB.
Yeah.
Just take them for what they are, and just take the flashes they're going to show, and have some patience. They'll be better a little later in a couple of years.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, Tennessee, I think, takes this one. And now our last game to talk about, and one of my favorite stories to come out this week in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the New York Giants. The Steelers signed Devlin Hodges as a backup quarterback, and they still got Mason Rudolph on the roster. Both quarterbacks have dated former Bachelor star Hannah Ann. There's some nice reality TV crossover here where Hannah Ann gets to decide who the backup quarterback to the Pittsburgh Steelers is. This is news, guys. This is news.
Devlin Hodges is on the practice squad, so Mason Rudolph won, and Hannah Ann is trash.
They haven't done the Rose decision yet. They haven't done the Rose there.
He's on the practice squad.
Give it time.
Okay.
Listen, I don't care about this game whatsoever. From any perspective, fantasy or otherwise, I don't like anyone on the Giants. I think
Saquon.
Yeah, okay. I don't think one person is one. I don't think anyone is who's watching the show needs to hear me say that Saquon Barkley is a good football player and you should start him because you drafted him second overall. So, yeah, Saquon.
I just like messing with you.
Congrats.
I mean, I like Slayton too. I mean, you obviously got a little man crush on Darius Slayton, but I mean, he's someone that I don't even know if I would start. It's just someone that you probably can maybe still get, or you got late, but he'd be the only other one. I hate him. Sucks. Don't like him.
I don't like him either. I got stuck with him. I don't like him.
I think Daniel Jones can have a decent season this year. I think he can.
You like Danny Dimes?
I think he's going to be better this year than he was last year. He got a decent amount of weapons. Slayton, Ingram, Saquon. I think they got Golden Tate.
Yeah.
And I'm missing the other receiver. Sterling Shepard. There we go.
That's your dude, too.
Yeah. So I think he got decent weapons to spread the ball around, and Saquon with the home run hit. I think he can have a pretty good season. Who knows what Big Ben's going to look like this year? He seems to be more motivated than ever, so we will see. And Juju, I think it's a contract year, so we'll see. But I'm not too sold on anybody on Pittsburgh's offense, really.
I think Pittsburgh's going to win. I just would sit everyone on Pittsburgh. I mean, Deontay Johnson's my sit of the week here just because he had injuries the entire time. He barely had, any practice. He's going into the game with an injury. Juju Smith-Schuster, according to all the reporters, had one of the worst training camps of all time. Which, if he's in a contract year, he probably needs to do a little bit better in the games. I like
probably, but not necessarily.
No, just fall into the end zone on accident.
Yeah.
And as far as the running backs, I mean, they have 5 of them, and John, is it John or James? We do this every week. James Conner. Coming back from the injury. I just love Terminator, James Conner, especially the second one. James Conner's coming back from the injury, and, who knows? He's got to click right back with Ben. So if they go back to 2 years ago, it's going to be great for both of those players. But they're both coming back from injury. It's going to be a rusty game. I still think they beat the Giants, but I don't want anyone on the Steelers on my roster this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. When I looked at this game, I went, ew. It was literally the first thought, ew. If you have Saquon, play him. Other than that, I really don't like anyone. I think the Steelers win this game, but from a fantasy perspective, I'm not into anyone in this matchup. So, guys, that's it. That's NFL Week 1. Thank you guys so much for listening to all this. We also have a little bit of daily fantasy for you. John Hazlett was nice enough to put together a lineup, even though he couldn't join us this week on the show. There is $500 remaining on this salary, and I'm just going to read it through. Quarterback Tom Brady, running backs Alvin Kamara and Todd Gurley, Deshaun Jackson at wide receiver. We're going to do Chris Godwin at wide receiver, Michael Thomas at wide receiver, Orange Juice Howard, OJ Howard at tight end. We got, I don't know his first name, Preston Williams. There we go. My boy Preston Williams in the flex, and the Philadelphia Eagles defense. That is your John Hazlett DFS week 1 lineup, and a couple of stacks to keep an eye on and play with. You got Lamar Andrews and the Ravens defense, and his sneaky stack is Carr and Bryan Edwards. So,
wait,
Rich,
fun fact. I have all those players on my Dynasty League.
Look at you.
Besides Carr, but I have everyone else.
I think he just went shopping on your teams.
He might have. I mean, he did it before I drafted the Ravens and Bryan Edwards tonight. So, maybe I got in his head. Who knows? But
maybe.
They're all
Maybe you did. My advice for our daily fantasy fans out there, I like to kind of wait a week before getting involved. I like to kind of see what off-season storylines have really come to fruition, right? Who's going to be the main running backs and whatnot, and just kind of get a feel before I start putting some money down. Week 1's all about those. You put all that homework in, you did your fantasy drafts. Let's hope that let's hope all this handicapping leads to a nice week 1 win. So guys, that's going to do it for this program. Thank you so much for listening this week and every week. I hope you had fun listening to our NFL week 1 analysis. Again, fire away on social media. All of the handles are listed there below. But for anyone listening, podcast at Daily to Dynasty, at Seagores94, at Coda522, at EMTaylor29, and at John Hazlett475. You can interact with the show more over at anchor.fm/daily to dynasty. Leave us a voicemail. And if you're going to listen to this thing podcast version, anchor.fm is the best way to do it. All the ways to interact with the show right there, every episode. It's a real great podcasting platform. All right, guys, that's going to be it. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoy NFL kickoff. And for Rich, Marcus, and John, who is here in spirit, we'll talk to you guys next week.